Hail Mary is actually really, really good. And I've not only read the book, I've also watched the film in one of the biggest screens possible in IMAX. And it's one of the best experiences that I've had in cinema my entire life. And that's how you really need to watch it. And for me, I think one of the best things that I've ever done is to actually read this book the same day that I'm going to watch the film. So I have not read Project Hail Mary before. So what I decided to do is to read some of it. So I managed to finish reading 300 pages during that day. A lot of pages enough for me to really love the story and where it's heading, and then watch the film, be taken by it, have one of the best possible times in cinema, and then finish the rest after that. So, one of the things that I want to speak of is how Project Hail Mary is really a Hail Mary for it to really work out. Because a lot of people may think that it's one of the most groundbreaking science fiction films of all time, or stories, or whatever, but I'll say it up front. I don't think so, but it's more of an experience compared to like an original story. But to really explain these things, basically, Project Hail Mary follows the story of Ryland Grace, appropriately enough, played by Ryan Gosling, so same initials. By Ryland Grace, basically a science teacher, and all of a sudden he was taken by these officials to help in this project to save the dying sun, because for some weird reason there are magical black goo whatever that's eating it up, that can be found in this connection between Venus and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of science mumbo jumbo and stuff like that. But what is beautiful that I want to mention first is that the book actually tried to explain those things as accurate as they could, as realistic as it could possibly be. And that's one of those things that I actually had a kick or got a kick out of, because I'm currently studying my master's and I'm a mathematics major, and we've had a lot of concepts or lessons in calculus lately that I struggle to understand. But when I read it here, I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. Yeah. There's some trigonometry, there's some basic algebra, a lot of computations. Like, it may seem alienating for some people, but for me it was really something that I could relate to, because I'm also in the midst of writing a research paper and there are some um, there's a big reason why I got a kick out of it, is because I'm basically spoiling the entire thing, but that's a point anyway. So the story of it is basically he decided to go to teaching kids instead of continuing his PhD or doctorate and writing all these extraneous papers, because of a specific paper he wrote about organisms or life not needing water to exist or something like that. So it's like something that was laughed at, because not only because of what he wrote, he also bashed some of his colleagues and peers in the academe. So he went out of it, but it's one of the reasons why he was actually taken to be part of Project Hail Mary in the first place. And so one of the things that I'll say, as a book, those computations work because it really provides ground for the story to really make sense. But as a film, I appreciate that they decided not to stick way too much minutes for it, because it may alienate some people. I love how, again, it's just me, because I read the book, I love the book, I got a kick out of it, but I think it's alienating if it's filled with those computations, too much explanations. Like, there's an arctan here, if I'm not mistaken. He did compute some trigonometry here. Like, you have to make something out of those mathematical computations and those physics, chemistry, biology, that is surface level enough to be, something that everyone could really get accustomed to and not be alienated with. Speaking of, that's one of the best thing that the film and the source material managed to do, is to make alien life form here not alienating, but actually something that I think is more realistic than what others did. That's why I really enjoy when aliens do not look like humans. That's why I loved Arrival. I'll go back to that. I loved Arrival. I love District 9 because of that kind of concept. And here the alien is basically the black goo, that kind of stuff. Wait, what do you call that? Black goo? The arthrophage. arthrophage, astrophage, astrophage. Yeah, astrophage. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The astrophage, and there's Adrian, and there's the Taumiba. So one of the key things that I really liked is they made aliens organisms, small organisms. Like you have to take a look using a microscope, and that's something that I think is really realistic. And of course, the most undeniable alien in this film is Rocky, which is basically an Iridian. It's a stone-like figure with no face, but Rocky has five arms, like a spider kind of vibe, and then he's like made of rocks, and he's creative, he's smart. But the thing is here, so I've mentioned Arrival earlier. So one of my key concerns with this story is that Project Hail Mary is kind of like hip hop. Both the book and the movie is hip hop to me because hip hop takes samples in the best way possible and provide a new content out of it. And so it's a tricky thing to do because if you fail to um, make sense out of the sample that you're using, the final product won't really make sense. It will look like an imitation, a copy, a derivative instead of something of its own. And I've read some reviews about it, like saying that it's a derivative sci-fi, but I disagree with it because I've seen a ton of sci-fi. I've read a lot of sci-fi in my life, and I think Project Hail Mary did a good job with sampling these films, these books, and making something out of it. So I'm just saying good. I'm not saying great because I don't. I just want to say this in the discourse. I do not think it's the greatest sci-fi film of all time or the greatest sci-fi book of all time, but it did right by it. So it did follow like because imagine this: the film Project Hail Mary is basically Interstellar. Like for example, Interstellar. Cooper didn't want to be a part of that project or of that journey, but he was forced to be there because he was the one suitable for the job. Same with Ryland Grace. Next, The Sun is Dying. That's Sunshine from Danny Boyle back in 2007. The sun is dying. Blah blah blah. This there is a there's an alien with a different language, and they try their best to communicate. That's Arrival. And there is an ending that is reminiscent of not a sci-fi film, but actually is zombie sci-fi. Excuse me. Yeah, I think so. That is reminiscent of The Girl with All the Gifts, which is one of my favorite books when I was young and one of my favorite films when I watched it because it's again simple and it has this concept of something different. So I'll explain that better. So they managed to take those things out and make something out of it. And that's it. I have to say that in advance. So I'm not saying that it's a perfect film, but with the way that this was delivered, I think one of the things that really gave me like more appreciation about this film and this piece of literature is because of how, oh by the way, I'm sorry, they also sampled the creator Andy Weir with The Martian. Basically, they sampled Ridley Scott, if I'm not mistaken, because it's not really used heavily in the book. But the film The Martian, we watch Matt Damon recording a lot of videos of himself, you know, like vlogging and stuff. And they had Ryan Gosling do a lot of that here to make the most sense out of it. So it's I think it's okay to sample yourself in a sense because it came from the same source material, writer or author. Shout out Sandy Ware for The Martian, by the way. I haven't read it, but I have the book. So, with that being said, I think I am in that rare Venn diagram because not only am I a mathematics major, not only am I currently writing my paper, not only was I a sci-fi fan, a Ryan Gosling fan, but being a teacher is the key thing that connects me with this book is because of again I'm mentioning the book because of one of the questions like who do you do it for, why are you willing to, or why are you giving your best for this. So one of the key things that I actually highlighted in this book, which I rarely do highlight some stuff, is the fact that Ryland Grace is doing his best for the kids because he wants to provide a future for them, a tomorrow. And that's what I actually think that the film lacked, because I think they failed to provide more mention of it, because in the book it wasn't really like 10,000 pages about it, just a particular chapter about the kids, and then some mentions in the middle and a mention in the end, so that the ending would really hit like crack. So just the simple kind of concept that you're doing it for the kids, have that in memory or be mentioned, it really does great. The film tried its best to mention that, but it didn't really hit. One of the things that I have to mention, a lot of stuff that they did in order to make the most out of an almost 500-page book is to have a whiteboard wherein Ryan Gosling or Ryland Grace is writing some stuff or questions that he needs to answer, because he had like this short term memory loss because of the long travel in space and all that kind of stuff. So it's dilated and all that. And so I wish they could have added more emotion in terms of why do you do it, like why do you hesitate, kind of thing. And with that being said, I just needed a little bit more connection with Earth and with Ryland Grace as a character. Like, why do you want to go back? Because in the book, it was explained better, I think. That's why when he had this epiphany, if he'll go and save Rocky or go back home, he chose Rocky because there's a connection between them. But I'm not saying that he should deny Rocky or whatever. It's like when you watch the film, it's an easy answer to just go for Rocky. It should have had that dilemma, like, are you willing to lose your life to save your friend? I hope they had more weight to it. So it really missed that. But the thing is, one of the things that I really love about film is how they managed to make the most out of like 2 pages. One of the best sequences I've seen in film in my entire life is when they did the fishing scene. When they described it in the book, it was clear, you could imagine it, but when you actually watched it, it's fantastic. And to somewhat get to have a backstory about how they did it and how beautifully they done it. They didn't use green screens and all that kind of stuff. They, from what I've heard from the directors, they use chicken wires, then the lights. So the cinematographer here is did a hell of a job. The visual effects people did a hell of a job, because you when you see the planet Adrian, it's absolutely beautiful. It's like one of those things that when you see it in a laptop or in a cell phone, it doesn't make sense. This film is really built not just for IMAX but for cinema. It's an experience that you could just get lost in. It's really taking you back. Like, this is why it's beautiful to just be a kid or be a moviegoer and just see all this wonderful imagery, because again, you will be able to imagine that when you're reading the source material, but to actually see a beautiful rendition of it, how beautifully it was colored, how beautifully it was presented. The score even is like, it's really tremendous. I really enjoyed, again, it's not really like one of those things that I had a problem with at first, but grown accustomed to, is how easy it was for Ryland Grace and Rocky to communicate. Ryland Grace is a science teacher. He is not a linguistic. And if you've watched Arrival, it's not that easy to converse. And Amy Adams was a linguist in that film. So I saw that too in Letterboxd, and I'm like, yeah, I agree. That shouldn't be that easy. But again, that's not the focus of the film, so we don't have to question everything. But I'm glad that they still included a lot of it to really not just provide like some realism, I guess that is the most logical way to converse, but also to give this kind of chemistry that you wouldn't expect between an alien rock and a human being. And what I really loved about it is that in the book, it's just basically notes, but it was described as whale sounds. And when you hear the score or the sound that they gave Rocky in the beginning, it's absolutely beautiful. It's really good. And Rocky in itself is fantastic. It was done through puppetry instead of CGI or like people in, or like tennis balls or whatever. So again, I think this is a good contender or a great contender, not just for visual effects, but from design, costume, all of it. It's really, really good. And so now, one of the things I haven't mentioned is actually the other human beings in this film, which is actually Ryan Gosling's tie with the Earth world. So I think Sandra Euler did a good job as this official with authority, but I'm glad that they provided more softness to the character as compared to the book, but it lacked much character development both in literature and in film. So again, that was the problem that I had because it's not really that connected. Like, the funny thing is, the invisible string of fate is with Rocky and Ryland Grace, but Ryland Grace barely has any threads with the people in the world. And it was explained, it was mentioned that they're both alone. That's the metaphor of it all. But again, I wish they could have put some more sense of urgency there. But one of the things that I love is they added this scene in the film that is not in the book, wherein Strat decided to sing karaoke and it's Sign of the Times by Harry Styles. It's perfect. Like, that's one of the best choices for the film. And I know a lot of people got some comments about how that character is a bit different from the book. That's the point. It doesn't have to be too faithful of an adaptation, because if it is, then why bother making a film if it's 100% just like the book? So I like that change, giving this. It's not making like a good person, but they had no choice but to save the earth. So again, it's a question of morality and kind of stuff. So that's a little bit tricky. But as a film and as a literature, I think Project Hail Mary did its best to create an atmosphere to really have this connection between two alienated creatures. Because Rocky's been there for decades, lost in space, hoping to save his planet too. And there's Ryland Grace finally meeting him there so that they could watch each other, be there for each other, and save each other. And so it's a beautiful tale, but then the ending came about, and the ending is basically Ryland Grace stuck in Iridian in Rocky's planet, and he's a teacher there. So that was a beautiful ending. It's a feel good ending, but again, it's just like a good version ending of The Girl with All the Gifts, where the teacher actually is the one that was locked. I'm not kidding. It's the opposite of The Girl with All the Gifts. And I'm not saying that they copied it or whatever, because The Girl with All the Gifts is a little bit underrated, but for me, as someone who's been watching and reading a lot of stuff, I don't find it too original. I just find it hip hop. I find it sampling a lot of stuff, and it made sense to sample that kind of concept. And so, for me, both the book and the film is a 4 out of 5. It's not perfect, but it's an experience. There's a lot of it that you can get, and it's for everybody to see. I think whether you like it or not, you'll get something out of this that you'll get a kick out of, especially if you see this in the big screens. This is the type of film that you don't watch on your phone or on your iPad or your laptop or on your TV. It's something that you watch in cinema, maybe in IMAX, because money will come later, but watching Project Hail Mary in its opening week in the biggest screen possible, you cannot take that back. You cannot have that again. That was an experience that I will really, really treasure. And the funny thing is, my favorite theater experience or cinema experience of all time is watching Blade Runner 2049 by Denis Villeneuve. And funny enough, that's Ryan Gosling too. So there's something about Ryan Gosling and his choice of sci-fi that I really, really love. He's one of my favorite actors, but his sci-fi films are really fantastic. He really did a great job here. And I guess one of the things that you could also point out is the fact that the one that directed this film is Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, the same guys who brought 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and of course, the Lego movie. They did produce the Into the Spider Verse and Across, and of course the Spider Verse. Basically, they produced that. But to think that the guys who made Lego movie made Project Hail Mary, it would make sense. They're the right ones for this job. And to borrow a line from that film, everything is awesome from start to the get go. I think this would be a front runner for visuals, for score, and maybe even acting nod for Gosling with his performance with this one. He's incredibly charming. He managed to bring out the charm and the charisma that the book has provided for Ryland Grace. No matter how awkward the guy is, he's extremely likable thanks to Gosling's performance. And yeah, you should go see it. You should go read the book. Both of them are really worth your time. You know, it is a Hail Mary because at a time wherein we're watching a lot of films it's filled with green screens, blue screens, CGI, AI. Man, all we need is a group of people who dared to do something, creating sets, rotating spaceships in real life, making the most out of the budget for the love of the game, you know, to provide an experience worth it for everybody. So yeah, go see Project Hail Mary. It's the perfect film to see, especially in this day and age. I'm definitely in, bro. Peace.